Hello, BookTube. I once again found myself at the Brattle Bookshop in downtown Boston. Those of you who are new to the channel, it's a used bookstore that is a mecca. It's just an amazing place for bookish people. The buying vans for the Brattle are out all the time, scouring New England and beyond for huge collections of books, small collections of books. People come in with books all the time to sell. And as a result, the Brattle has something that is a pearl of great price for used bookstores. It has enormous turnover. You're not going to be staring at the same book over and over and over again like you do, and like I have done many, many times in the well-intentioned but far less well-stocked used bookstores of small towns that I have lived in. And as if that weren't all good enough, the Brattle also has a sale cart lot next to the building. I mean, sale lots outside of used bookstores are old features and are common, but usually it's one barrow or two. The Brattle has a whole lot, the floor plan of an entire building of space given over just to $1, $3, and $5 books. Thousands of them, arranged in no order whatsoever except by price, and in all kinds of condition, so that if you want to set aside $20 a week, you can come away with 19 books plus tax. and they'll be good ones. If you're careful, if you have the time to wander around the carts, you can find not only good books, but books in excellent, like new condition. And just build a library that way. I have helped young people many times over the decades to build libraries from the Brattle carts. And I love going myself. I didn't plan on going today, but I was happy to be there. And it was a nice day, too. It's actually a beautiful day in Boston. Warm and sunny, mild, no wind, no hint of winter, really. In fact, the air has almost a hint of spring. Certainly, the temperature and the mildness and the clear blue sky, but also the sound of the air. Birds are returning, and owls are hooting constantly all day long, even in the daylight, because it's time for them to set up their nursery. And those are hopeful signs. No matter what else is happening, those are hopeful signs that summer is coming. Once upon a time, my least favorite season, and now very much my favorite season. The hotter, the better. But it wasn't painful or uncomfortable to shop the Brattle carts today. Sometimes it has been, many, many times. There have been many, 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 many decades where I went to the Brattle carts in all weathers, literally in the middle of winter, literally in the middle of a snowstorm, when some of the carts would be left uncovered, and I would just stand out there like a bison in Yellowstone. I would just stand out there shopping the books. I don't do that anymore, but on a mild day, absolutely. And I found a bunch of stuff. I found a bunch of stuff that I wanted to show you. And the first three things that I want to show you, you could probably predict ahead of time. They're murder mysteries. The Brattle has a generous collection of murder mysteries, and they're always getting more. And in all of 2020 so far, I have been just aflame with interest in reading murder mysteries, in canvassing around for new authors, new styles, new periods that I can try. I realized as I was in the grip of this mania, I realized that I have not really done this for murder mysteries. I've done it for romance novels, and I've done it for science fiction and fantasy going back forever. And also for all the other genres. Those all came first, history and biography and fiction even. But mysteries, I've just sort of let them come, catch as catch can. And I've known the series that I've really liked. And what I'm doing now in 2020 is just buying up all the murder mysteries that I can find that are dirt cheap. In this case, these things didn't cost anything because one of you called in a generous credit at the Brattle. You can do that if you want. You can call in credit at the Brattle. You pretty much won't even need to specify. Just say, I'd like to give Steve some store credit. You probably won't even need to tell them my last name. They'll know what to do. But that's what I did today. I'm offering precious little in the way of apology because these murder mysteries are giving me so much enjoyment. Today I went for just random entries. I'm not going for full collections here until I decide. I mean, I'll probably take the first half of this year to just read vigorously, willy-nilly, everywhere. And then I'll decide, okay, well, which mystery authors do you actually want to have? And once I want to have them, then I'll want everything they did. Like, for instance, this one. I saw this. This is a UK mass market. I saw this at the Brattle and realized instantly that I don't have any of these. This is Ellis Peters. This is the Brother Cadfael Mysteries. This is the Potter's Field, which is number 17. This is number 17 in the endless chronicles of Brother Cadfael, although they're not endless. I've had many people tell me that they wish they were, that I'm rationing my Cadfaels because I only have 5 left and then there are no more. And these are the adventures, the mysteries that are solved by a monk in an abbey who was once a crusader. So he has been a man of the world, and Brother Cadfael is extremely sharp and knows human nature in a way that his quarrelsome fellow brothers tend not to. And in the Potter's Field, a Potter's Field is being unearthed in the 15th century, and a mangled corpse is found. I remember that as the setup, but I remember precious little about this novel, so it's going to be great fun to revisit it. I have a strong suspicion that Ellis Peters will probably be one of those authors that I will end up wanting all of them. I'll end up wanting everything. It's ridiculous that I ever didn't do that. I've had whole collections of Brother Cadfael before. I've had whole collections of whole bunches of people before, and I don't have them anymore. But I'm using the scattershot approach here mainly to get the old scent back and see who it is I like and who it is that I don't like well enough to have in completeness. Now, this next author, someone we've seen before. This is an author I strongly suspect I'm going to want everything of, and I'm going to want them in this format. This is Dorothy Sayers. This is Busman's Honeymoon, with Marie Michel's sort of Art Deco cover art. And this is a murder mystery starring Lord Peter Wimsey and his wife, his new wife, the mystery writer Harriet Vane. They are on their honeymoon in this novel, and of course they encounter a crime. They encounter a mystery that needs solving, even though Lord Peter, if I remember correctly, fervently wished that would not happen. He wanted peace and quiet. But all of the Lord Peter novels are classics. All of the Lord Peter short stories are classics, and I like them in these Marie Michel covers. I had them, the whole set, once upon a time. And I also had I got Gaudy Night, and I have a couple of others, and they are a little bit more ragged than I would like. But as I've mentioned on this channel a few times, these old mass market paperbacks are rarer and rarer. They just don't turn up anymore. They're extremely fragile and they get lost. Whole collections of them get lost or thrown to the dump or whatever. So I know that I want this. I would like all of these with the Marie Michel cover artwork in hardcover with dust jackets. I know they were all made. The whole set was made, but I'll take what I can get, and on the understanding that I probably won't be able to get much. But the last murder mystery that I got is by a highfalutin mainstream fiction author whose work is not known anymore. This author is not, as far as I know, reprinted. There is no big, gigantic volume of a novel in series, much like Dance to the Music of Time, that is really, really good. But I don't think that it exists anymore in any way. And this is his idea of a murder mystery. This is C.P. Snow, A Coat of Varnish. It was a perverse way for Lady Ashbrook to be remembered. As her friends in Aylstone Square take in the implications of her brutal murder and speculate on who did it, they realize that somehow an assault has been made on the values they all tacitly uphold. For Lady Ashbrook, arrogant and unlovable, nevertheless represented something that was fast vanishing from society. And that change in society, that shifting from what he viewed as the old ways to a ragged and crass new world, totally preoccupied Lord Snow. And it totally preoccupies his fiction, which seems to me to be dead. His fiction seems to be gone, at least in America. And I don't quite know what to do about that. I would love a whole set of his paperbacks. And maybe, as we've seen at the Brattle many times, maybe the person who unloaded this thing also had, this is a Penguin mass market for UK only, maybe they had a lot of other Lord Snow. That would be great. I would take it all and reread it. But the idea of C.P. Snow doing a murder mystery is funny in its own right, because he's not going to respect I've never read this thing, but he's not going to respect the parameters of the genre. There's no way that he is. I'm sure that he thinks that it's beneath him. I'm sure that he did. And I'm sure that this book will be mostly about the murder of society with a capital S than it will be about the murder of some poor old lady. We shall see. Then this next one, I was pleased to see it. It's, again, in a little rougher shape, but I'll take these in any shape that I can find them, because I want this whole set back. I regret that I don't have them. I'm going to assemble as much of a set as I can and then reread them all. And believe it or not, it's James Michener. This is Caribbean. I want the mass market paperbacks of this author that have the cover design with an oval in the middle and a picture. So far, I have now Caribbean and what's the other one that I got? Texas, I believe. I want all of them. I want Poland and Space and Chesapeake and all the others. And I want them in this format. This has a little crease on the spine there. The problem is, where are you going to find mass market James Michener that hasn't been beaten up? Because the format of these mass market paperbacks is the highest compliment you can pay to the author's memory. People read them. They didn't just buy them and hold on to them. They read them and enjoyed them. And I got a little bit defensive on the subject because you're buying Michener. And I can easily picture literary snobs that I have known in the course of my life saying, "You're buying Michener?" Say it that way. To which, just because I'm feeling a little defensive, I want to say two things. One, I've said on this channel many, many times, your literary snobbery is not my problem. And two, again, because I'm feeling a little defensive, I'd be happy to invite you to compare your reading to mine. Okay? I don't make a harp of it on this channel or even in personal life. And it's best that you don't too. If you think that this limits me, then A, you don't know what you're talking about in terms of limits. Michener was a fine craftsman, and these books are endlessly enjoyable. And B, you don't know what you're talking about in terms of my limits. And I'd be happy to, engage in a literary quiz match, maybe literary trivia. Maybe compare our libraries under one condition only. The few people I'm mostly talking to ghosts here, but the few people who would have looked down their noses at this as a purchase, I'd be happy to do some sort of comparative contest of our separate readings under one condition only, which is that the loser pays the winner every single piece of wealth and property that he possesses. The deed to your house. Signatory rights to all of your retirement accounts, all of your bank accounts. I want it all. If I win, if you dare to challenge, I want it all. If you do, but anyway, this is. I have not read any James Michener in forever. The last James Michener that I read wasn't even one of these big sprawling travelogue type things. It was a book called The Novel. A novel called The Novel. It was all about. It was a dramatization, a fictionalization of the creation of one book. Michener also wrote a book called The Creation of One Book, but it was nonfiction. This was a novel that he wrote about novel writing, and I loved it. Thought it was fantastic, but I was remembering the whole time that I was reading it that it isn't what drew me to love Michener in the first place. So I want all of these. If you see them, if you're in your local used bookstore and you see a James Michener with the oval cover design, that's what it has to look like. Then snarf them up and send them to me. I will gladly reimburse you. And that was it for the mass market paperbacks. But the next book that I got is also a mass market. It's just hardcover. It's an old mass market modern library of Walter Pater, The Renaissance. And again, as soon as I saw it, I realized that I didn't have a hardcover copy to reinforce and use. I think I have a Penguin Classic of this book. This is a classic study of a whole bunch of luminary people in the Renaissance era. You might as well call it Eminent Renaissance Lives as along the lines of Eminent Victorians. And the author is endlessly insightful. He's endlessly eloquent on all of his figures. So whether contemporary scholarship has surpassed the idea or that he puts forward or not, I love him. Absolutely loved this book. And I'm not sure, when I saw it, I held it in my hand at the Brattle, I wasn't sure that I even have a copy at all, much less maybe I have a penguin, but I'm not sure even of that. So I grabbed it, and I want this format anyway. I will not only reinforce this was an ex-library copy, but I'm thinking that I could do with redesigning the cover, right? This is kind of boring. I'd like this type font here, but if I were to put when I'm reinforcing the cover, if I could add a picture, something that's colorful and that says the Renaissance, that would be a nice thing to keep. Then the next two books are biographies, almost as inevitable when it comes to me as murder mysteries now at the Brattle. And one is a little older than the other. They're on the same person, which is Lord Byron. This is Fiona McCarthy, who a really terrific first-rate biographer who we just lost. She just recently died. And this is her big book on Lord Byron. I knew as soon as I saw it that it wasn't the copy that I have had a copy of this on and off forever. I'm sure I've shown a copy of this on this channel at one point or another in a library tour or a biography. I have a lot of Byron biographies. I am fascinated by this figure. It helps that I love his poetry. And I think I'm the only one left in the world who does. It helps that I love his poetry. So I periodically swell my shelves with biographies of Byron. I'll have 8 or 9, and then periodically I will say, you don't need 8 or 9 biographies of anybody. Get rid of half of these, or all of them. And when I held this volume up at the Brattle, my first thought was, well, it's got one of these nice library plastic bindings on it, so it can't be mine. Because I would never put something like this on a book. And believe it or not, that was all the justification I needed to get this thing, was that I wasn't buying a double. It's a sickness. The only reason I'm not ashamed is because you have it too. But this is a wonderful, sprightly biography of Byron, so I don't mind having it. I'll definitely reread it. And then this next one gets, I'm going to reinforce it. It's in pretty bad shape, and it gets a reread sooner than that. I think we've seen a copy of this on this channel. I believe I sent it out to one of you because you hadn't seen it in forever and you had fond memories of it. And I know that feeling. When I get that kind of an email, I know it's real, and I usually try to accommodate, even though I shouldn't, because I end up buying multiple copies of the same book. But this is by Doris Langley Moore, and it's the late Lord Byron. It's got a little bit beaten up. I will fix this so that it can be read, and I will reread this. I have not reread this in a long time. And this is her study. It's not so much a biography of Byron. This is a post-mortem biography. It's a really, really good study of how all the people in Byron's orbit, near and far, immediately swarmed together in the immediate aftermath of his death in order to seize, censure, and craft his legacy, his posthumous legacy. You wouldn't think that you could make a whole book out of that, but this is not only a whole book, it's utterly great. It's one of the must-have Byron books. There used to be hundreds and hundreds of them. But there aren't any more. And this would be one of them. This is one of the ones that you have to have, even though Byron as a living man does not appear in it. It's fascinating. I also might add, not that it much matters, of all the books, all the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books that have been written about Lord Byron, this is the one that he would have wanted to read. This is more than any other. This is the one that comes closest to the classic narcissist fantasy of being present at your own funeral and being able to listen to the orations that people make. That's what this is. It would have infuriated him, but this would have been more interesting to him than anything else. And the author herself is fascinating. She was this is a great book, and she's done a bunch of others. She did a bunch of other great. She also just comparatively recently died in 1990, I think. But she wrote a lot of great Byron scholarship and Byron adjacent scholarship. A great biography of his daughter, for instance. But she was also a fashion maven and wrote extensively on fashion as well. Did lots of fashion criticism. And started all sorts of knew all the fashion designers of her day. Really, really a fascinating figure in her own right. But I was very happy to find this. I will reinforce it, and then these two things I will make room for them on the biography shelf out in the other room. It will be the very pleasant work of half an hour to go and find all the Byron books and then make room to add 2 more Byron books. And then the next 2 books are also predictable. They're also predictable when it comes to me, because there are regions here in Massachusetts, the great Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the greatest state in the Union. There are regions that I know really well. I know Boston really, really well. I don't know if you've ever been trapped listening to me talk about it when you're in Boston, but I know every tree, every brick, every cobblestone, every building for all of its ages. every piece of topography. I know everything there is to know about this wonderful, wonderful town. But outside of Boston, there are a couple of other places that I also know, and one of them is Cape Cod. Those of you who maybe aren't up on your Massachusetts geography, picture Massachusetts as a rectangle, a long, flat rectangle. And then there's a fish hook of land that extends out into the Atlantic Ocean. And that fish hook is Cape Cod. And it's a wonderful, wonderful place. I might not know every town and burg and city in the rest of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, as well as I know the city of Boston, but I know everything about Cape Cod. I have spent so much time on Cape Cod. So much time. I've walked every inch of it. All the sand dunes and the pine copses, and I've known all the weathers of the place, and salt box homes that weren't weatherized, trying to live through one of those in the middle of winter, and the shore, both on the seaside and on the bay side. I've known. I love Cape Cod, absolutely love it, and this is a classic book that I think this might be. What I think this is. Well, anyway, this is a classic book from 1944. A journalist and editor named Arthur Tarbell wrote a book called I Retire to Cape Cod. That dorky 1940s cover. He also wrote a book about Cape Cod called Cape Cod Ahoy that I have somewhere here in High Cottage. But I haven't had this in forever. I had a copy of this ages and ages ago at a beach house in Cape Cod and read it then and loved it. This is just a series of very warm reminiscences about odd characters and odd traditions and odd thoughts that occur to a previously very busy man when he retires to Cape Cod. And it's a delightful, delightful book. And Tarbell was born in 1872 in a wonderful leafy part of Greater Boston called Jamaica Plain. And he retired to Cape Cod right around the time that he wrote this book. And it's warm and affectionate, and it's also a little bit bittersweet because he only got to enjoy it for a couple of years before he died. But this is a gem of Cape Cod writing. And so for me to have it, I have a collection of Cape Cod books. And I've always fondly remembered this one, but I never thought I'd see it again, so much less with a dust jacket. So now I have it, and that's great. And another one of those locations that aren't Boston, but that I know extremely well. There are two others. There are two other of those locations. There's Cape Cod, which I know every grain of sand, every piece of it. And then, apart from that, there are two other places. Actually, there's a third place, which is Beverly, but that's a video for another time and involves a whole nother subject. But there are two other places. There are two islands off the coast of Massachusetts. Nantucket, which is way out in the Atlantic Ocean, and which was, for a long time, just a frontier. I've spent many, many, many seasons on Nantucket, including over the winter. And much closer to land is another and bigger island called Martha's Vineyard, where I've also spent an enormous amount of time, including over the winter. Back when that meant something. It doesn't mean anything anymore. But once upon a time, if you were going to winter on the vineyard, you were in for an adventure. Let's put it that way. Because half the island shut down, and half the ferries to the mainland shut down. So you were largely on your own. That doesn't happen anymore. But I love the vineyard. Absolutely love it. I've spent a huge amount of time there. And I've mentioned these stories on this channel before. I got to know the editor of the Martha's Vineyard Gazette, a man named Henry Beetlehuff. I got to know his dog as well. He was a wonderful, gentle, wry, intelligent man. Pure New Englander, in a way. And I was just there and hanging out, and I loved looking at the books that accumulated in the newsroom. And a couple of times he would ask me in long walks or after he was done up shop, or oh God, all this noise. Must be a fire somewhere. Sorry about the background noise. Once we got to know each other a little, he would ask me, you might want to try writing for the Gazette. Why don't you review a book for the Gazette? And I would tell him, no, I don't think I want to do that at all. And I would smooch with his dog, and I would talk with him and his wonderful wife. But in one of those weird twists of fate that would look out of place in a novel, but that life regularly serves up for you. I am now, 45 years later, the book reviewer for the Martha's Vineyard Gazette, even though I haven't set foot on the island in forever. That is puts a smile on my face every time I get a new commission. Every time some new book comes that my editor wants reviewed, and I get to do it and see myself in the Gazette, because I get the Gazette in the mail. I just have the smile on my face because I remember. Anyway, I found a book by Henry Beadle Humph. This is Singing in the Morning and Other Essays about Martha's Vineyard. Lovely thing with the dust jacket. The illustrations are by Will Huntington. Let's take a look at those. Let's take a look at some of those. This is just occasional reminiscences of the author about life on the vineyard, and this would have been half a century ago. Let's see here. This came out in 1951, and this is just a collection of Henry Beadle Humph would occasionally write pieces, write just gentle, reflective columns on vineyard life for the Vineyard Gazette, and this is a collection of those columns. It's got a little chunk missing on the cover. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to fix it completely. I'm going to restore those letters and the coloring of the sky before I reinforce the cover. And so I was just overjoyed to find this. It's a little fragile. It's in a little fragile shape, just like most of these other books. I'm going to spend a good, happy hour restoring these things so that they can be battered all to hell and gone for the rest of their lives. I'm never going to get rid of any of these things. And then the last one was a bit of a lark, and you can do that at the Brattle because the books are $1. So you can have a lark. You can hold something in your hand and say, I'm not sure I would like this at all. I'm just going to take a gamble on it. It's $1. So what difference does it make? It's a lark in the sense that I'm not sure that I will keep this, but I will pore over it because it actually connects with a project, with a project that I have in mind, that I've mentioned on this channel a few times before. A couple of years ago, I had the idea of doing a garden. Finally, trying to garden. I've dreamed about it my whole life, and a lot of you were encouraging. A lot of you sent me advice. All of the advice was contradictory. I loved you all the more for it. And then I balked at the last minute because, to quote an old New Yorker cartoon, all the gardening schemes that I'd come up with involved stooping. And I felt bad about that. And all winter long, I've had emails from all of you, because I leave my email in every video. You're perfectly free to email me about anything you want. I've had emails from a lot of garden enthusiasts who act a lot like Jim Jones cult members, saying, "No, we want you. We want you." They want more gardeners in the world, but it's a good thing, so I'm not going to object to it. Telling me that I gave up too soon, that I was too harsh on myself, that it wouldn't be that much trouble, that I could maybe get muscular young weightlifters to till the ground for me. And finally I decided that maybe the thing that had been putting me off was not so much the stooping as it was the grandiosity of my plans. So I have scaled back my plans. Also, a few people told me, you don't want to garden vegetables in a plot of ground that's right now alongside your house and that's so close to a 4-lane road, because it's going to absorb all of the exhaust from that road. All the dirt from the sidewalk is going to be in that food. You have to be careful about that when you're gardening vegetables. So a lot of you suggested maybe I should garden flowers instead. And a couple of you, one or two extremely canny manipulators, said that one of the reasons I should that I should garden flowers, is because they attract birds. Apparently some of you have been listening with unhealthy closeness and realize that I have a mob of unruly sparrows at the front of the house that I absolutely adore. I've watched them endlessly. Well, that worked. That worked, and flowers do seem to take less care. So that is going to be my goal for this spring. I'm going to till just enough ground to grow flowers. I'm going to choose very hardy flowers, sunflowers, I'm thinking, and we will see what happens. But adjacent to that idea was the whole idea of birds finding those flowers attractive, and so I found this thing, Garden Birds, how to attract birds to your garden. And I grabbed it right away. It wasn't any money. One of the things I like about it is that it's illustrations instead of photos. I just think that's lovely. I don't know how many of these birds will ever be attracted to my garden. Probably my horrible South Boston sparrows will scare everybody away. They're so poorly behaved. And as I mentioned, I find them hilarious because they would rather fight with each other than eat the food I put out for them. They actually are the South Boston Irish Catholic of the bird world. But anyway, I'm going to go through this. I don't know that I know enough to take any of the tips that are involved here. I'm just going to try and grow some flowers, and we will see what happens from there. If I fall in love on that small a doorstep, then I will get more elaborate as time goes on, maybe even as the summer goes on. A lot of you told me, it's not make or break for the spring. You can change your mind or add plants in the summer and still get produce, whether they're flowers or anything else. So anyway, there you go. That was a nice digression-y trip to the Brattle. That's what you can expect if you were ever to go there with me in person. I'd be nattering the whole time. But this was a great trip. I'm going to spend some time reinforcing these books and loving them, but that's okay, because I don't, aside from maybe a couple, this bird book, for instance, I don't plan on ever getting rid of any of these. That's the goal of every trip to the Brattle, is to get books that you're not going to cycle through. At least it's my goal. So that is our Brattle trip. Let's see if we can do a Steve pile here. We have garden birds and how to attract them. We have Singing in the Morning and other essays about life on Martha's Vineyard. We have Lord Byron, Life and Legend by the late Fiona McCarthy. We have The Late Lord Byron by Doris Langley Moore. This is more about his posthumous reputation than his life. We have I Retire to Cape Cod by Arthur Tarbell. We have The Renaissance, this great old modern library hardcover. We have Caribbean by James Michener in a particular kind of mass market. I want them all. I want all the mass markets. They were all made this way, 30 books. I have Code of Varnes by C.P. Snow. Fairly snooty murder mystery. Might still be good. Never know. Busman's Honeymoon by the great Dorothy Sayers. I'll put this. I am slowly rebuilding a collection of those Marie Michel covers for Dorothy Sayers. And lastly, The Potter's Field. Ellis Peters, Brother Cadfael mystery. I believe it is currently my only Brother Cadfael mystery, and I want a whole bunch of those, but I will keep reading them. I was tempted the other day to get a collection, an omnibus. There are a bunch of omnibuses for Brother Cadfael, but I'm not sure. I just don't. I've had opportunities to do that in the past. I just don't particularly like omnibus editions of the same author. Are there any of the rest of you that way? I get to the point where, I have some of them, but I get to the point where, I don't want to read just one mystery in a 1,000-page volume and then feel like I'm compelled to read a lot more. I don't know. The individual books suit me better, and I have no shortage of them on offer at the Brattle and elsewhere. So there was a Brattle trip for you. So thank you for accompanying me in a way, and I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.